2. I was walking down an alleyway when I met a prostitute. What? Wait, what? Wait. Wait. No, it says that. Wait. What? It says it. It says it. No, it says it. I was walking down an alleyway when I met a prostitute. Shut up! It was broad daylight, and I was wearing my light green uniform of the 35th Pacific. She was looking down at the sidewalk in a daze. Her hand was shaking, and her face was puffy. I asked her if she wanted a drink of water. It was October, and the temperature was low 60s. I took her to the nearby fire hydrant and gave her a drink. I'm sorry, what? She was looking at me like she had no idea who I was. I took her arm and walked her to 38th Street and 8th Avenue and told her to wait. She sat at a park bench and I walked to the 31st percentile. When I returned to the bench, she was gone. I didn't see her to the front of the door of the... I looked for her, but she was gone. She got into a white car and the driver sped off.
What is it?
It was a green and red Toyota Corolla.
Wait.
My first thought was that she was being picked up by a pimp.
What? A pimp?
Yeah, that's what it says in here, man. The next morning, I checked out a payphone outside the 15th Precinct and called the Corolla with her missing persons report. A woman answered and she told me to come to the station. When I arrived, I saw a tall, lanky officer talking to the missing person's family. The officer told me to go wait in the... The officer told me to go wait in the holding area. I was sitting in an unmarked car for hours when he finally... Oh my god! Came out and walked over to the car. The first thing he said was, "We have some bad news for you. Your daughter ran away. We have no idea where she is." He gave me the address of a woman's shelter in Brooklyn and told me to call when I found her. I called every 15 minutes until she called me. "Mom, I'm back home." I was glad to hear her voice and cried for the next hour. She told me that the Red Cross gave her a bus ticket to my house. My first thought was that the Corolla and her pimp had taken her there to my apartment. But she...
Have you?
I'm not a weeb. But she said she was waiting on a bus to somewhere in Canada. I was happy that I had not called shelter the next day.
No.
Posted by... When I was a 12-year-old, I would write...
Dude!
When I was a 12-year-old...
When
I was a 12-year-old... When I was a 12...
Kobe!
When I was a... Yeah, neither can I! When I was a 12-year-old, I would write... When I was a 12-year-old... When I was a 12-year-old, I would write about my life in the hopes that someone would read it and save me.
It's JoJo!
See what? I'm not a weeb. It's your fault.
150 episodes, no way, bro.
When I was 12 years old. When I was 12 years old.
It's gay.
Did I ask?
No, please. No.
Thanks. My life is so much better than now that I know that knowledge.
You're welcome.
When I was 12 years old, I would write about my life in hopes that someone would read it and save me. I always knew I would die young. It was a secret between me and God. My mother, a teacher, told me that if I were ever abused, I would call her and she would take care of it. The things I wrote were... What, did you change it? The things I wrote were too horrible to... I swear, if you break that, you owe me like 3 sushis.
How do you turn it back to red?
Are you colorblind?
Oh. It has an R in it.
That's crazy, man.
Wait, what was it? Oh yeah, give it.
The things I wrote were too horrible to relate to her, so I decided I would write about it in a journal and save my family the trouble. I locked my bedroom door at night. and put an old Spanish movie called Of Life and Death. I wanted to watch that movie in the dark so no one could ever know I wrote about what happened to me. I would lock I would lock the bedroom door and keep the lights off so I could write without distraction. It was amazing what I was able to capture when no one was watching. I just sat down at the desk and wrote whatever came to mind. I made up words and little stories and had no idea if they were any good. But I wanted to believe that they were because I was afraid of what would happen to me if I knew what I did. It was summer in Brooklyn and the heat was oppressive. I wore a tank top and short shorts.
Is it even gonna show up?
What?
You. Yeah, but they can't hear you.
That's fine. I'll just talk louder.
Okay.
I wore a tank top and short shorts.
Talking Yabasama. Love us more.
I wore a tank top and short shorts with tights on my feet. And my hair was pulled back in a ponytail. I got ready for bed and lay down on the top of the sheets with the air conditioning on high.
Tower God.
But I was having a nightmare, and I did not sleep. My heart was racing, and I could smell the smoke and feel the fear in the air. I went to the desk and picked up the writing utensils, and I kept next to the mattress.
I have no idea.
I didn't want anyone to know I was having trouble sleeping. I didn't want anyone to know I was having trouble sleeping.
Dragon Ball!
If I told anyone, they would think I was a supernatural force at work trying to prevent me from sleeping. Maybe the air conditioning was too loud, or I didn't sleep on the right side of the bed, or maybe it was the images from my dreams that kept me awake. Maybe silence was just too terrifying. It didn't matter what it was. I had to get some sleep. I pulled out the paper, pencil, and highlighters that I kept next to the desk and sat down at the desk. I opened the black book and put the pencil to the paper. My handwriting had been so cramped and crooked when I was younger that the writing felt as if it had been washed clean and was instantly fluent. It was as if I was reading someone else's writing and had suddenly been transported into their world. This was my life. It took me a long time to finish the writing. I could feel the pen on the paper and I could hear my heart in my ears. I knew I had to keep writing, that this would end badly, that I would die, but I had to get it out of my system. When the words were finished, I closed the journal and went to sleep. I slept with the lights on for the next few nights. I imagined that I could feel something watching me. The nightmares had gotten worse, and the pain was worse. It felt as if there was an all-consuming shadow that was always at my back, just waiting to be discovered. But at the same time, I was comforted by the sense of being watched. I thought that if I slept with the lights on and my door locked, that the shadow would be drawn to me instead of my back.
You're just in a room full of darkness.
I spent many hours just sitting in the dark, looking out the window. I heard a creak in the hallway, and I realized that my door was unlocked.
Bro, what?
I saw myself in the mirror, as I felt the shadow take its first steps towards me. I got up and closed the door. The shadow disappeared. I wasn't going to let it happen again. Oh my god, it's the shadow.
That's what I was going for. Wait, I was right in front of the camera.
Yeah, idiot.
Oh.
Finally. The shadow disappeared. I wasn't going to let it happen again. I would keep the doors and windows locked at all times. I was not going to let anyone know what I was going through, these terrifying things. I closed the journal and put it back under my mattress. I sat down at the desk again and began to write. I kept a diary for years. At first, I didn't write about the things I saw, but instead tried to describe my emotions and feelings. At first, I tried to pretend that it was just something funny that had happened to me. I wrote about school dances and parties and going to concerts and hanging out with friends. But I was lying to myself, and eventually I had to admit it was not just a normal adolescent phase. The more that I wrote, the worse my writing got. I went back to reading the writings of the worst my writing got. I went back to reading the writings of the sleepwalkers, and I started to wonder if maybe I was also one of them. The end. Or the start of whatever that is.